Gonna just sit here and wait and see if I'm working. I am told the And just like that, we started off with a great, successful start to this. Welcome, OIT family. This is Sean Lardo, VP Partner Development here at OITVOIP. Thank you for showing up for another Partner First episode where I plan on being on the rest of the time now and not blocking out. Not sure what happened, but I already got yelled at by Simon. Again, thank you all, but we have a great episode coming up here today. And I was already informed by this guy that he has a hard stop at the end of the hour. And considering he's a professional, I guarantee he's going to hold me to that. So, and that's also a lesson you guys will all learn on this call or on this webinar. But I don't want to. Yes, Ray. Good job, Simon. Thank you, Simon. Yes. And I'm only not on time because I was fashionably late just for the rest of you. However, we do have a great show here today. Good friend of mine. It's been in the space for quite some time. I'm going to give you a few of his things, a few of his accolades, because if I talked about all his accolades, we really wouldn't even be able to do the webinar because we'd be still talking about that and he wouldn't be on the screen yet. But as I was mentioned, a great friend of mine. He is the vice president of field enablement at Netskope. But before that even, and I've known him for some years, he's been a huge instrumental piece in the sales enablement world. And for those of you who don't get what sales enablement is, it's simply giving the ability for your team to produce at a high level, enabling people, empowering them, educating them, all the things around that to be able to do their job. It sounds easy, right? But there's a ton behind it. We all know that. This man also, some achievements, just some quick achievements. 2021 Sales Enablement Lifetime Achievement Award from Selling Power Magazine. In 2020, Top 18 Major Leagues Sales Coaches Award from Lessonly. 2020 again, Sales Influencers to Follow, Morning Brew Media. 2019, Top 10 Sales and Marketing Influencer on LinkedIn. And for everybody around that, schedule LinkedIn appointments. We hear it all the time from every single consultant you talk to. Where was I? Oh, 2019 again, Top 15 Social Media Influencer from Brainshark. 2019, really busy year from obviously. Top 10 Sales Enablement Consultant by Sales Hacker. 2015 Sales Onboarding Program of the Year, and that's from Serious Decisions. And then not to mention, the man actually put out a book that's an Amazon bestseller, Sales Enablement 3.0, The Blueprint to Sales Enablement Excellence. So yeah, like I said, he has a hard stop in an hour, so we're going to keep him on that, just out of respect. But I'd like to bring on my great friend, Roderick Jefferson.
Roger, how are you, man?
Doing great. How are you, sir?
All that. I'm sitting over here going, yeah, that and $7 will get these folks a latte. I'm sure they did not come to listen to my accolades and awards. And I'm looking at the screen in the rows. I hope you didn't enable or drain Sean. That's not the best reference. Hey, it happens, man. Every once in a while, something slips through the cracks. But I'll tell you this, I've hung around him long enough now to where he's getting it. He's going to get it. So
I appreciate that, Roger. Thank you for the support.
Keep the faith.
I really appreciate your support in that, continuously believing.
Just here to be helpful.
You're almost like an absentee father that I never had. So yes, which he's on this show right now watching. So anyway, thank you for being on. Seriously, I know your time is valuable, so I appreciate you taking time to be here.
It is my absolute honor, man. This is a topic of mine that I absolutely love jumping into because I don't think it happens enough. And I know you and I were talking offline, so I want to kind of set the tone. There's enough that we've talked about me. Let's set the tone. I've run enablement for about 25 years. I started out as a salesperson, was a BDR, was an AE, all that fun stuff. So I've carried a bag. I get what's going on. Doesn't mean that I understood what was going on outside. So in my previous 2 lives, 3 as a consultant, as well as also at Marketo and Salesforce, I owned enablement. So as it says, and I always ask these 2 questions whenever I'm sitting where you are. Who is this guy and why should I listen, right? And we don't go to a movie unless we know what it's about. We don't go there unless we know, is it a comedy? Is it a romance? Is it a drama? What it is? So I want to give you the same thing. So when it comes to sales enablement, I am actually the person that coined the phrase about 15 years ago, created this thing called the Sales Enablement Society. The goal there was to make sure that It was in line, similar to what PMI is for project management. How do we get consistent nomenclature and things of that sort? I think we've got all the logos up here. The NASCAR slide is there. I'm not going to go through all of them. I've done this for a little while at a couple of companies that might be big one day, that might actually catch on. How about that?
Yes. Yes, I believe when you and I met, it was the Marketo. It was right before the Marketo days. Actually, it was Oracle.
Yeah.
Because it was, and yes, it was, you're actually, I looked up to you. I was like, I want to be where you are.
Thanks, man.
Especially, we're not going to get back into the Magic Johnson story because I'll cry, but that was why. So yeah, no, you did work with some seriously big companies, and a lot of our audience, you'll actually are resellers for a lot of these guys. It's not uncommon. They work with companies like this, or they work with other companies similar to this. I think, and the reason why, again, I wanted you to be here, what I thought was so important is, yes, we know who you are now at this point, but the reality is you have a lot of great life lessons that you've done, that you've implemented, you've practiced, you've preached, and everything else, and you've had success. And one of the biggest conversations we have with our partners and the audience at large and all the groups that we're in is, how do we grow the business? How do we get things rolling? How do we work with vendors? But how do we even do it on our own? So
that's that's the real deal. That's where the rubber meets the road. I can know enough folks that can come in and create theory. And I always look at things kind of as a sports analogy, right? And so let's say you're trying to play basketball and your coach is trying to teach you how to do a left-hand layup. And they say, jump off your right leg, lift your left hand, release the ball. You go, okay, coach, here you go. Show me how to do it. And they say, well, the manual says, jump off the right leg, lift the left hand. There's no space for theorists right now. That is one thing that I love about COVID. It is separated the theorists from the practitioners. If you can't get it done, if you can't walk the walk, then you're of no high value. If you can't connect with that selling team, if you can't get them to understand that you are not a third cousin at a family reunion that they wave at and hope you don't come sit at the table, but they want revenue from. No. When I look at partners and alliances, I always think I want them at the table with me. I want to give them a good cut of meat, and I want them to become part of the family. So much, Sean, that, and you remember, when I was in corporate previous to going to consult, I would literally bring partners and consultants to our new hire for the first day so that they can learn the messaging and positioning. I think it's that important that it is ingrained in the culture, and you can't be partner friendly. You can't even be partner centric. What you have to do is really depend on the partners to open up doors, to put you into those places where you guys already have relationships established, but this has to be mutually equitable. Let's get away from fair, folks. Fair went away when mom used to parse out M&Ms one by one to make sure everybody got one and not two. Let's focus on mutually equitable. What can you do to open that door for them? What can they do to also, let's be honest, make money for you and your company as a consultant and as a partner? Because it's going to take both of you speaking on the same page, same terms, and not overselling each other or stepping across each other. It's how do we sell through and how do we sell with you instead of trying to sell around you or on top of you. Discounting percentages, all of those things, messaging, positioning, all has to be so that it's mutually equitable.
Couldn't agree more. We just did a webinar the other day with an Everything MSP group where we talked about why a partner selects a vendor. And it came down to criteria like, obviously, technology is suitable for what I'm trying to accomplish. What's the reputation of the company? But then the biggest number one reason was the engagement with the company, the support they received, the love they felt, so to speak. Just being shoulder to shoulder was the number one answer for everybody in the pool.
I've talked to enough consultants. I've been a consultant. I've cited on enough partner advisory boards and councils and all that to realize that if you're not working together, you're either all in or you're all out. There's no we kind of work together. It's not how it works anymore, especially now. You've got to make sure you're on the same page, talking the same language, same nomenclature, because if you don't, the one thing that's going to become noticeable right away is one of you doesn't know what the hell you're doing. Real quick.
Agreed. Totally agree. So, and I don't want to go off topic, but I do want to come back to the fact that, I think you should talk about this book too, considering you wrote a actual book that's on Amazon.
Thanks, man.
Kind of a bestseller. I mean, kind of a big deal. So
kind of. I put the book out and it's done well. It's been amazing. The book hit a #1 new release, and now it's a bestseller, and it's going crazy. I wrote the book as a service, and I wrote the book for folks that are on this call, and as well as the folks in-house, of how to work together. And there's a whole chapter in there about communication, collaboration, and then orchestration. How do you do this all as a single, joint, unified team? The reason I wrote it was simply because the thing is a service of how do we get away from the way we've always done things. Moving forward in what I'm calling 3.0, in that era, if you are not fully in lockstep, it's not going to work. Because there was a time, right, where we could go in and we could talk to customers about, how do you increase productivity? How do you accelerate speed to revenue? How do you communicate deeper? How do you collaborate across organizations? It's not what it's about anymore. Now it's really more about taking an innovative approach focused on increasing sales productivity through a systemized, personalized, and highly collaborative approach designed to support the buyer through what I'm calling the conversation economy, right? Now it's how do you help prospects and how do you help existing customers maintain the customers that they have? Now we've got to talk about not just business value, key differentiation, and things of that sort, but you got to talk about COI, the cost of inaction. You've got to talk about ROI. You've got to talk about how do you help them mitigate risk? How do you help them reduce costs? And then ultimately, how do you become a strategic partner that's going to help them get to the next level? And you're going to be there along the way, right? We all know sales is about a couple of things. It's about understanding and speaking the language of your prospect and customer. It's also about making sure that you are diagnosing pain. And then finally, it's what's the solution to that pain, right? Is it aspirin? Is it Vicodin? Or is it an extraction or an amputation because you got to stop the bleeding right now? But what I would love, and I'm doing my best to talk to the sellers in-house, and I'm looking for some help from the folks on this call here as well. Get these folks to stop giving presentations and start having conversations. Because right now, bits, bytes, and bots are not going to work. Right? It's got to be really, I understand where you are. Let me either validate where you are and add some additional pieces on it. And now let's talk about what's the solution. Don't sell products. Don't sell solutions. Don't even sell platforms anymore. If you're going to sell anything, sell the experience that prospect or customer can only get by partnering with you. You're the secret sauce.
I love that. I think that's well, that's well said, because selling that experience they're going to have with you is a big deal. We've been around long enough to know we've seen tons of PRM, so portals out everywhere, right? We've seen those. Yeah. We've seen channel management, enablement. We've seen that. We've heard it all. We've seen it all. There's been tons of technologies built around that vision. But we've always seen post that the adoption is so low. So the engagement doesn't make sense. It doesn't justify the cost. So absolutely. I don't. Yeah, and I haven't seen much more out there than I showed you ours, Partner Central, and we put a lot of
money, by the way.
Thank you.
I've already talked to our channel person. They're going to have to talk to you to figure out how ours can actually look like.
Don't worry. Well, don't worry. Our CEO Ray's on this. He heard that. He probably loves that. We'll get you together. We love to powwow with everybody.
All right.
We're all in this together. So if we can help you, we absolutely will. So this book was awesome. I haven't started reading. I did order it, by the way, just so you know, which makes me kind of mad because I'm going to make this announcement now that we are going to be doing the giveaway. If you guys did not see at the bottom on the banner, for the best question, which the best questions will be voted by like me and Roderick and Simon, really, we're going to decide. So whoever has the best question will win a copy of this book. I totally would have not bought the book and just tried to win the competition. Honestly, I didn't know we were doing it until Simon told me. So thanks for the
support, Sean. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. You are welcome. So yeah, let's talk about
clearly
that.
Free is always in the budget still.
So let's talk about, let's continue on here again. So I'm going to give you some things here that like, as I mentioned, we hear a lot of these people have a hard time understanding that. And what you said about the experience and how you go and learn how to speak. Actually, Keith actually put this up, which I thought was great. So you start with sales speak or establishing your position as part of their management and planning team. So that's always the question. Like, and just so you understand, this is Keith. I was mentioning to you about him earlier to you.
Yeah.
He will say he doesn't sell anything. He's not an MSP, but he grows his business wildly, and he does all the same services as an MSP, but he's not an MSP. But he does understand how to get in with the company as become part of their management staff. But he does struggle with, like a lot of people, of how to differentiate where sales is and where sales is not.
Mm-hmm.
So that's his question.
First of all, Keith, great question. And I'm going to give you a kind of strategically tactical answer to this. And it may feel vague at first, but I'll dig deep in here. It depends upon the maturation cycle of the company and where they are, right? Are they a small volume velocity sell? Are they a complex sell? They've got a ton of different products in the bag, or are they a big ticket enterprise sell? So it's going to shift, right? When you're smaller, you've got to start with that positioning because they may not be as well known. But when you get larger, it's not so much about sales speak as it is making sure that you're focused on the same topics and the same target. Key differentiation, competitive advantage, and especially business value, right? And that's the piece that tends to get left out. So let me define business value. So Mr. and Mrs. Customer, we've got all these cool toys, bells, and whistles. But at the end of the day, we can help you do one of two things. Either A, increase productivity and efficiency, or decrease pain. That's where you want to play. Then there's another piece that comes in, and that is, we all talk about ROI, right? But what about COI? What's the cost of an action if they do nothing? How long are they going to hurt? And how deeply is that pain going to hurt? That's where the pain diagnosis comes in, right? And then the final piece is, there's one question that tends to get left out by salespeople all the time. And it's probably one of the most important questions to ask that they rarely do. And so it goes like this. So, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, what I understand now how this is going to impact the company. We've talked about the pain that you're experiencing. What will this mean for you personally by partnering with us? Let me say that again. What will it mean for you personally by partnering with us? Because is this going to get them a bigger seat at the table? Is it going to get them a promotion? Is it going to get their name up in lights? In some cases, will it get them out of the doghouse? You need to understand that. So then you know how to help that prospect specifically. And I'm not trying to give sales 101 by any means. I'm sure all of you sell better than me. What I'm saying is I'm seeing the mistakes that sales folks out there are doing internally and in-house. And here's where you can help them not trip over their own selves, and also not tank the deal that's going to be something significant and profitable for both of you.
I love that. I think that you talking about, and I don't really ask that personally. Like, what does it mean to me personally? I mean, I kind of do, I guess, in a roundabout way without doing that, but it's never been
Ask it directly.
Yeah, like I don't even think to do that, but I think it's smart because now you get their personal motivation.
No, you get a step further than that. You get their personal motivation, but you also get them on their team because no one else, and I guarantee you most of the time, your competition is not asking that question.
I love that.
And awesome. Selling has never been more personal than it is right now. Hell, we're inviting each other into our homes. Why would you not ask that personalized question to differentiate yourself from the others? And secondly, we've got to build rapport differently now than we ever did. You can't go play golf anymore. You can't go out for cocktails. So what are you going to do to differentiate yourself? Ask that personalized question. And I guarantee you the level of support for you and also the level of push for you by them will change. That will instantly put at least a step towards them becoming a strong champion for you.
I love that. But you saying, actually going back to everything is different, right? Since COVID kicked off, we were in this group yesterday and it was asked of me, like, have I changed anything in my sales process because of doing it this way, not face to face in person? Yeah, obviously you change some things, you tweak things, right? To be, you have to figure out where to go to meet people again. And social media is where I dwell to do this. Actually, on Facebook and a lot of these MSP groups I get in. But as far as the sales process, there's still the same properties as far as I can tell. Introduction of who's doing what, find out what's going on, your discovery. Make sure there's even a match. Present your position, let them present theirs. Make sure you guys understand them and you're able to address the needs. Because if not, then it's maybe send them to somebody else if that's the case. Or say, yep, we're good to go. After that, set the guidelines around the expectations of what's going to happen and how it's going to happen.
I agree. And I want to add one piece. Don't be afraid to say 3 of what I believe are the strongest 3 words in the English language besides I love you. and they are quite simple. And we're all terrified of them at different times in our career. I don't know. There's enormous amount of credibility in that. You know, no one knows everything, but what you do, and as we all say, I don't know, but let me go and I'll find out and I'll get back to you. Just stop it. I don't know for a second and let that marinate. I'm not going to fluff you. I'm not going to try and BS you. Let me go find this out and come back to you. One, you've established an enormous amount of credibility. And secondly, what you've said is, I want to make sure I can get you the best answer possible.
I love that.
Big step, big step. So to your point about how things have changed, for me, I think it comes down to what I call my 5 Ps, right? And this is the piece of the pandemic that I'm actually the happiest about, that it actually happened. And those 5 Ps start with, when it first happened, there was a big pause, right? Because none of us had ever seen anything like what went on, right? It was an initial piece of shock, and it kind of dominated and consumed, not even kind of, it dominated and consumed everything that we were doing. And then the next step was step 2. And at this point, I was a consultant, so my next step was panic. I'm going to be honest, I lost $300,000 in revenue in 48 hours because budgets froze, because people weren't sure where things were going to go. So talk about fear, uncertainty, and doubt. That was the ultimate in FUD that I had ever been a part of in my career. And then the next P from that was kind of where we are now. We went into planning. Right? Things are going to come back. We're looking at goals and deliverables and metrics again, and we're starting to see budgets start to loosen up. We're having deeper level of conversations and different kinds of conversations that leads to the next P, which is progress. And I think that's where we're stepping into now. And with that progress, I'm seeing more excitement. I'm seeing more optimism. I'm seeing more advancement. I'm seeing, again, budgets starting to open up. We're having those conversations. Large companies are starting to hire sales folks again. And then the final P. And I think, yeah, one more P. There we go. The final P. And that's where we're going to step into shortly. And that's prosperity. I imagine that there will be success. There will be expansion. There'll be continued growth. And there will be opportunities that will open up that may have fallen off by the wayside previously, or even new opportunities that have opened up that weren't there before, because the world is starting to feel a bit more comfortable from a buyer's perspective. And so they're going to open up and have those conversations. So just hold on tight.
I love it. Smart. It's think that. Yes, I agree with all the above. I think everybody I've seen so far in the chat said the same thing. Actually, so I put this up earlier. Ray was talking about giving the ability, building rapport remotely is doable using a different approach. That goes back to what we were talking about before, but I love the fact that you put the 5 steps in here. I think the biggest problem that I've ever had when I was younger was the pause, just waiting for a minute and then not panicking when I thought I was going to lose something. I think then that desperation occurs, and once desperation happens, your plan goes out the window.
Yeah, and earlier in our career, it's hard to sit still and pause and wait. Right? We got to go. We're still trying to prove ourselves. As you get older, it's easier to jump from that stage 1 of pause, run through panic, and get to planning. Doesn't mean that panic doesn't hurt. Believe me, when I saw the numbers that I had lost in revenue, there was definitely a moment of panic. But I also said, what am I going to do different? So that was an opportunity to shift. I moved things from instructor-led courses into online courses. I created an online course with Udemy explaining and talking about the value of enablement. And then I wrote the book. That's where that's that planning stage. I'm prepping now, like I'm sure everybody on this call, for that stage 4 of progress and how we're going to get there and how we're going to push through progress to prosperity.
I love it.
And it's coming.
So do you have
it's not going to look like what it used to.
Well, I think you said, what was the line you said about your book even? It was a 10-year, one night overnight success?
Oh, yeah, but the book was a 10-year overnight success. That thing didn't just pop up and happen. I literally had been mulling it around in my head for 10 years. And then when I saw the change coming quickly in my space and enablement and how we had to do things differently, it was a Kickstarter. And it was perfect timing because that was right about the time that the pandemic kicked in. And now the whole book is literally about the future of where we're going, not how we do enablement today and all the old stuff, but how folks that are on this call are going to have to work differently with sales folks. And I'm teaching those sales folks how to work differently with you as partners and alliances and consultants. And I'm giving it again, back to my basketball analogy, because I've walked in those shoes. I can talk about how comfortable or uncomfortable they are. And hopefully it'll resonate with you folks.
Absolutely. All right. So anything else on your, I know you have some presentation slides and we talked about not putting many up. So I'm going to keep true to that, but obviously we have a few.
I think as we go along, and this is one, right? And I'll say this, I don't believe that what we're walking into is going to be a new normal, because new normal infers that it's something that we've seen before that we can kind of rest our laurels back on. I believe we're walking into a next normal of selling. Why? One is that relationships have always been the backbone of success for selling, but there's never been a time in history where selling has been as personalized, where leading with humanity, empathy, and EQ has meant more than it does today. That's one. The second is we all had to and continue to have to adjust, right? We've got that overused word, and I know it is, pivot, to deliver deeper value, but deeper value around improving discovery and qualification skills. I think those are sorely lacking in sales, folks, and that's why it takes so long to move things through the funnel and through the processes and stages. Offsetting any negative press, there's enough out there that it's become noise. Feedback around how do we help, as I said earlier, help our prospects and customers increase profit, reduce costs, mitigate risk, and then focus on business outcome selling instead of bits, bytes, and bots around presentations. And then the last piece I'll say is focus, and that is there's a lot of noise. I'm trying to get sales folks to focus their energy and goals and deliverables on things that they can impact. And I'll say that to the folks on the call as well, because we all get caught up. Focus on things that you can impact and that align to that company's goals and back to that experience that they can only get from working with you. Anything outside of that is just noise. And there is a hell of a lot of noise out there.
Absolutely. Eliminating noise, right? As a sales rep, what are some good practice? Do you have any good practices that they should focus on? Anything along those lines?
Yeah. The first best practice is this: stop worrying about your sales process. Stop worrying about your sales methodology. Stop worrying about your sales stages. Stop worrying about the selling motions. Focus on the buyer's journey. What does that look like and where do you fit into it? Stop trying to shoehorn your prospects and your customers into all of your selling motions. Instead, flip that script. Go and find out who buys, what buys, and where buys, and focus on the why instead of the what. That is the problem. Why is that pain there today? How do I help solve that problem? And then come back with that diagnosis, as I said earlier. Is it aspirin? Is it Vicodin? Or is it amputation or extraction? And never forget, keep this thing personalized. We're inviting each other into our homes. Selling is not what it used to be. Selling is finally starting to become helping again. And isn't that really the baseline of what we should be doing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And actually, let me throw this comment up here from Carrie. You see, he's awesome. He's here to give you props and praise.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
You give some awesome nuggets of knowledge. And he said, his question is, who do you look to for mentoring?
Myself personally?
Yeah.
I go to the folks that are I look two angles, and it may sound odd. I go to the OGs, if you will, in enablement that have been doing this almost as long as me, because I have to sanity check on, am I saying this right? Does this make sense? Is this still relevant out in the real world? Then I go down to folks that I actually mentor and or have worked with me previously that are younger and far more innovative and doing things differently than the way that I'm doing today. Because I'm a perpetual learner too. And I don't think that I know everything. I take from them and go, what does it look like? I'm a keynote speaker and I speak at events. I also speak at colleges and universities. I've got a 31 and a 22-year-old that I call my walking use cases, right? I'll go to them and say, what's the latest tech toys? What are your friends playing with? Are they still TikToking? Are they still on Insta? Is there something new that's coming? And so a mentor is, to me, someone that can teach you not only what you don't know, but what you'll never know and you can only get from them. So I go top down and I go bottom up.
That's awesome. So there you go. And then Keith, toughest part of sales for many in our space is a sales process, which you just said, don't worry about that.
Mm-hmm. I didn't say don't worry about it. I said it's secondary to the buyer's journey. You better worry about it. Otherwise you won't know where you're at. process.
Right. So yeah, and he actually said, do you use Sigma 6 type flow?
I'm familiar with Six Sigma. For me, that's a yes and a no. So when it comes to methodologies and it comes to sales processes, Six Sigma is great from a framework perspective. I don't follow it step by step. It's kind of like the sales methodologies. I think I've done everything from spin selling to TAS to conversational selling to Challenger. They're all a framework. And at some point they become blue and light blue. What you need to understand is how to apply that where you are in the sales cycle. And I take it again, back up to the buyer's journey. Let's find out how I take that framework and apply it to where they are in the buyer's journey so that I can show the key differentiation, competitive advantage, business value, all that stuff that we show, and how we can, again, help them with that experience that they can only get from us.
Awesome. So, okay. Then, actually, this is his next comment. Wait 1 minute. 1 point for the rose. I've been saying processes are rated over relationships and site-specific needs.
I'm not going to disagree with you.
Right. It is.
It is. Well, I'll tell you this. There is a high value for sales process, going back to something I said earlier, depending upon the maturation cycle of a company and where they are. If you're a volume velocity deal, then there's a great methodology for you. If you are a complex deal with tons of, like we were at Oracle and at Marketo, where you've got multiple different tools inside the bag, then it's different. Then when you get to that large, big ticket item where it's going to take you 10 months to close it, you can't have the same process that you can teach a BDR that's flipping volume velocity deals.
Right. And that's actually what he said next. How we're back to sales cycle. How do you manage a cycle when you're a consultative versus commodity based? Again, back to your velocity concept, right? If it's a highly transactional, whatever, it's a very linear. We know, like McDonald's, if you stand at the register, you're going to get this many orders. This is what you do. This is the process.
And you know that time is money, right?
Yep.
And so, and every one of their small burgers is going to have cheese in this. It's going to be ketchup, then cheese, 2 pickles,
right,
meat, and a bun. And it's consistency. And that's what we're looking for in a process, right? Now, that's a commodity. Consultative is where you have to get a bit more creative. And that's where that personal question really takes you to a different level on the consultative sell. Because you've gotten and you understand intrinsically what's the pain points for the company. Now you take that and tie that together with what's the personal win for the buyer. And then now you can map out that roadmap that includes both of those. That Absolutely. To me is the true consultative sell.
No, totally. And actually Ray even mentioned, as far as it's meat and potatoes, one can't live without the other. The play is important to have, but you also need to be able to read the field. So Absolutely. Again, back to whether it's a high velocity thing going on or whether it's a slow play, because in enterprise deals, it's an unwritten rule, but with every signature that you have to get for this contract to be agreed upon, you can add 30 more days before the contract is signed also. And if it's a large organization, if it's a land and expand, you may only get a small piece of the pie, but it may take 12 months to 2 years to get that small piece.
Absolutely.
And Keith had mentioned it earlier. Yes, at which point though, you're providing a service to them and showing them why they should trust you, why they should work with you, and you are doing that for sure.
100%. Let me simplify it for everyone. The commodity piece, you're selling. The consultative piece, you're helping.
I love that. Spot on. So I'm trying to keep us on track still, because back to hard stop.
All good.
So I know we have another slide to pull up, so I'm going to pull this up now for you.
For that, as I was talking about earlier, that next normal, man. Everything has changed, and so we've got to build rapport differently. And it's no more, you can't look behind them and go, oh, you went to University of Texas, you like to fish, so do I. So what? Right? Keep this thing on a personalized level that's still moving the deal forward. That rapport is, we all know when someone is fluffing us. We all know when someone is being genuine. And I look at it this way and I say, if ever you meet me publicly and I'm not the same person that you talk to on Zoom, I did you a disservice, because I set you up with something that's fake and phony and that I can't follow through on. The same thing can be said for building rapport when you're selling. You should be the very same person on camera that you are when you're in front of them. The next is got to create a virtual community like we're doing here. And OIT, I want to stop for a moment and Sean, you guys, and say thank you for doing this. And this is not anything that you asked me to say, and I'm not getting, back end coverage of this. I say thank you because there is nothing more important right now than being able to share and sometimes commiserate in a community of folks that are like-minded and doing what you're doing, and folks that are not like-minded, equally as important, where you learn something different and you go, wait a minute, that was a softball. Why didn't you swing at that one? Or secondly, wow, I never would have even thought about positioning something like that. Thanks, I've walked away from something. To me, the best webinars that I've ever been a part of, whether I'm sitting in the audience or that I am sitting here presenting, is this. I learned something, I walk away with something that I can go put into practical application right now. Don't give me fluff and BS that, oh, this happens and then it might happen this way. Give me something that says when I walk away from here, I can say definitively, I can go put this into practical application right now. It's going to make me either a better person, a better seller, more empathetic, whatever it may be. But I'm better because I sat on this and I didn't waste time here. So keep building on this virtual community, keep sharing the questions, keep throwing out and sharing things differently. Don't become an echo chamber. Too many times I see where these communities start, and it starts for the right reason, but then everybody that comes in, they walk, talk, they think alike, everyone's got the same haircut. No, don't do that. Make sure that you're sharing things and going, this happened over here and it worked, here it goes. This happened and it didn't work. I blew it, I fell on my face. But I learned from it and I'm giving it to you so you don't step in that same hole and fall on your face. The next piece is fighting virtual fatigue. Man, we're all on these conferences virtually all the time. I'm on 8 to 10 Zooms a day. Try this, and I know, I'm just gonna say it, new and improved ain't always better. What I've started doing is when I send out something, I send it out without a Zoom link, without anything in it. And then I write to the person and go, would this be better if we just picked up the phone and talked? Would you be okay if we didn't jump on Zoom today and we just talked on the phone, old school? Why? Get tired of seeing the screen and the eyes are messed up and this crazy green light that's flowing in my eyes right now. And sometimes you just want to go, you know what? I just want to talk to somebody. I don't need to be on camera. I don't need that exposure. There's times you need to. You're doing demos, etc. But if you don't have to, step away from the virtual piece and just pick up the phone and talk to someone. And the final piece is, even with all of these things going on, even with the next normal that we're walking into, even though we are highly virtual now and things will change, the level of customer support and customer success cannot, will not, must not ever dip. They have the same expectation of you. They still have the same pains. You still got the answers to that pain and the diagnosis. It can't change. The only thing that's changed is the delivery vehicle. And what has changed is I think it's not easier to sell now, and I'm not going to say that statement. It's not easier. What I think it's easier to actually build rapport now because you don't have all that outside noise. Someone said earlier, it's doable. Not only is it doable, it's mandatory. And all of these things that I just outlined equate to how we build rapport and how we help versus selling differently in today's virtual environment that will take us from that planning stage that I talked about earlier into that next phase of prosperity. And they'll remember this when you get back in front of them. Don't worry, we'll be able to play golf again. We'll be able to have happy hours again. It'll come back, but it's not going to look like what it ever looked like before.
So with that said, then for these guys these men and women that are on here, they do a lot of their stuff in person, right? So virtual has been challenging for sure. Mm-hmm. How do you help them get moving in that direction? Is there a process or a book? Is there anything like how do we?
Not even about a book. There's a number of self-help books out there, but you know what? It's a simply complex statement. I'll say, get comfortable with being uncomfortable because this ain't going away. Ease into it. Don't do 8 Zoom calls a day. Do 3, but make those 3 something that's helping you to get comfortable. Either you're perfecting your messaging position, you're getting your stick together, you're making sure that you're having a conversation and not a presentation. The second thing I do is every time I get off one of these, I step back to myself and I go, not what could I have done better, but what could I have given them that they would walk away that will differentiate me and also that will move things forward in that sale today. And if you didn't do it on that second Zoom call, try something different on the third Zoom call.
So agreed. But when you try something new, back to being comfortable with being uncomfortable is I can't agree more, but what does somebody do to shift that? If you find yourself in an uncomfortable situation because you've been there where you get on that call and you get nothing done, and you get the next call and nothing's done. It's almost like you're like, I always use the analogy of like, oh, it's like when you were a young kid and you had your first girlfriend and you guys would talk to each other so long on the phone till you had nothing to talk about. Then you would just breathe on the phone together, like just because you didn't know what to say next. You know, people get in that. I've seen that. It's happened to me in my past, and I see people happen to people. So how do you get out of that? How do you make that? How do you shift it?
What I do is sometimes I use silence as a plus, right? Most people get really uncomfortable when it gets quiet, right? And so this is where you go into the old, for us that are old, the old Columbo mode. Was there anything I said that was unclear? Is there anything that I could have clarified for you? Is there anything that I may have left out? I'd like to outline, maybe we're at a point now where we outline next steps, and I want to see if we agree. This is where it goes from, I'm not giving you a demo, I'm not giving you a presentation. I'm asking you questions to engage you, and they're open-ended questions. They're not the yes, no's. It's what could I have, how could we do this differently? What did I give you enough? If not, please let me know in these specific areas. So it's really about making this whole thing a conversation.
I love that. And actually, I think your next slide here that we'll bring up is about communication.
It is.
And this was not planned either, just so everybody understands.
Yeah. No, it kind of works out. And it's about clear, consistent, and consistent communication. And again, I keep things in 3s or 5s. So the first P here is purpose, right? When you're talking to them, things you can ask them about, find out that, again, not sales 101, I'm just throwing out what I use. Find out about their culture. Is there a charter in place that this is tied to? What big rocks in the organization does this align to? What does success look like for the company? And back to that personal thing, what does success look like for that individual by moving forward? The next thing is people. And that people is back to the buyer journey. What talent is a part of the buying journey? How is the whole compensation for your sales folks tied out? And I don't mean asking them how are they compensated, but how does this tie back into? How will this help them either increase productivity or decrease pain, right? The next is programs. Find out, how is this going to impact the programs across the board? Not just the piece of the technology you're selling, but is this for onboarding? Is this related to global initiative? Is this now, how are you taking in consideration the competitive landscape? Are you guys now trying to be bleeding edge and move forward? Or are you playing chase? And will this help you get to and get past your competitors? Where does this play into your overall story, your go-to-market strategy around domain expertise? The next piece is performance. What kind of communications are going around that brought this pain up? Is this something that's frequent? Is this something that's infrequent? How are you coaching your leaders to address this today? And how would we address this differently with what we're bringing in as far as a service? The final is platforms. This is where you really now start to talk about what you bring to bear in that experience differently. Like, how can you help them scale? How can you help them automate? How can you help them make sure that everything that you're doing as a team ties back to revenue impacting and revenue generating metrics? And then who will this be communicated to, and how can you help them with that communication to make sure it's clear, it's concise, and it's consistent?
All right, that's great. Actually, that's kind of funny you're saying that, because at the same time, Keith's already saying, do you go across the counter and help your prospects see their business in the eyes of their customers and engage and improve the process? And yeah, I think you.
Yeah, because if you don't, again, you're just part of the echo chamber. And you've got to go back to, who is this going to impact? How is it going to impact them, right? That's why I said mitigate risk, reduce costs, increase productivity, decrease pain. There in a nutshell, as simple as I can say it, is the mantra of sales enablement, but it's because it's really the baseline of sales and helping. And if we can keep that in mind and ask those questions directly, people are going to give you the answers to it. You've got them there. And this is your opportunity again to differentiate yourself from everyone else in this space that's doing what you do.
Absolutely. So actually, Keith had asked, are these slides in the book?
Yes, they are. As a matter of fact, these slides and a bunch of others, I actually give away a bunch of my templates in that book. And so the goal was to help people that are coming behind me with a blueprint that I wish that I would have had as I was coming up, one in the sales game, and then secondly in the sales training and sales enablement game. So Keith, yeah, the slides and charts are in the book, man.
So be sure to order it, Keith, like now while you're doing absolutely nothing else the rest of the day. Be sure and order that book. Simon did put the link in the chat for you too. So no excuse on not having it. Okay. So we have 8 minutes left. I think you have another slide or two left only. So we're making good time. We can run through that and be done. Talk about our upcoming events and pick the winner for the question, which we'll do live, which I'm probably going to pick on my own unbiasedly, of course. But yeah, let me get up your next one here.
This is where the introspective assessment happens. And we all do this on some level on a daily basis. But I think, especially in today's world, we got to make this a bit more concerted effort, right? I talked earlier about the need for empathy and EQ. And I know those initials and that word's flying around. But I want to break it down just a bit for those that are walking into this or may have an idea. I'll give you my impression. Now, what's leading with EQ really mean? It's about having the capacity to be aware of, control, and express one's emotions, but at the same time, to handle interpersonal relationships with empathy. That is treating everyone different. We can't peanut butter the way that we used to, especially as sellers, and assume, okay, this person thinks like, or this is the same line of business, so I'm going to walk in with the same shtick that I had before. Certainly, you're going to have a piece of that, but never is it going to be all the same. So how do you lead when you're out there and you're helping with EQ and compassion, right? It's about gauging, applying that self-awareness, managing emotions, managing empathy and social skills, but from the perspective of the other person. And I'm glad that question came up earlier. Do you ever talk to them about their end customer? If you don't, then I don't know how you're closing deals, because ultimately they're selling to someone. And if you don't understand who they're selling to and help them to approach them differently or give them a tool or a process or a solution or a service that's going to make them more valuable, then you've only done half your job as a salesperson and as a consultant. And finally, how do you individualize this? And that is, we've all done this for a while and we tend to rest back on our laurels. The world has shifted. We can't do things the way we've always done it. Avoid always leaning on your own experiences. You've got this community, as I said, bounce things off, talk to people that are doing things with you, similar to what you're doing. I'll go back to what I said earlier. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Next is become the type of person that people want to follow because of your actions and your character. And I think we all know what that means, especially because when most companies look at consultants, they look at us as, and I say us because been there, they look at us as vendors. We're not. We are truly solution partners. We are not the fixers of broken people and broken things. We're not that junk drawer that has a thimble and a spoon and a sock and you just go grab it. No, not at all. We are a valued partner that really brings not just success, but somewhat of ease to their lives as people and then also to the company. And the final thing is, I start every one of my coaching, mentoring, etc. conversations with a single 3-part question. And now that I look at it, I go, wow, I wish I would have known this earlier in my career. And the question goes like this. Do you want me to listen? Do you want me to coach? Or do you want me to fix? Let me say it again. Do you want me to listen, coach, or fix? And the reason I ask that question is twofold. One, as consultants, we naturally go in to solve problems, right? As leaders, I go in to solve problems. Sometimes that's not what's needed. Sometimes that person just needs to get things outside of their head. Sometimes they need to be able to bounce. Sometimes they need to lean on my tenure and experience. But most importantly, it tells the other person you're having the conversation with that this conversation is squarely centered and focused on you. That's all I got, Sean.
I think it's more than actually.
Yeah, hold on. Let me say this. don't try this at home with your significant others. It is not going to go over well. Not at all.
Matt Conley's watching this right now, and he can tell you he tried things. He works with me and worked with me in the past life, and he tried to take some of the sales. Long story short, he took it home and it didn't work out well. Just like you said, it was bad.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have 4 minutes left.
I see your question, man, about the audiobook. I'm actually in the process of starting to record it now. It's in hardcover, it's in paperback, and it's in ebook right now. So by probably end of summer or going into fall, we'll have the audiobook ready for you as well.
Awesome. Okay, so we got a few minutes left here. I know we have, I don't know, we have a slide here, Simon, or what we got going on here? It is black.
If we have anything else, that's it.
Simon, we just lost Simon. Simon's gone. He was having Wi-Fi issues. We have nothing left on the slides. Okay. We were supposed to have our upcoming event slides. So yeah, I'm going to wing this.
We got to give away the book, man.
Yeah. We got to give away the book. Yes. Actually, Simon was sending me the message of who should get it. Hold on, let me find it and I can't agree more, which was not off topic, but on topic, but not just about sales. And oh my goodness, I'm looking for it right now. Yeah, I already know who it is. And here it is. Carrie Wagner. The reason why Simon and I suggested this is because when you said, who do you look for in mentoring? I think education is so important, and being humble enough to look for mentor on both sides. That was a big question as far as I was concerned, because we can talk about sales processes all day long, but the fact of the matter is it's about being humble enough to learn what's being given to you anyway. So congratulations, Carrie. You're getting a freaking book that I got to buy. Just letting you know. I get a free one. Yes. So we'll get that out to you. We already have your information, Carrie. We use Salesforce, by the way, Rodericks. I have it in Salesforce.
All right. It ain't in Salesforce. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, right. So we'll wrap this up here now, guys. If you have any kind of anything you want to know about Roderick, I mean, by all means, you can find him on LinkedIn. He's a huge LinkedIn contributor.
I think I've got a contact slide if we can get that up.
Oh, God, no, I cannot. Simon's gone.
Okay.
He has all your stuff.
To connect, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Roderick Jefferson, at the Voice of Rod on Twitter, or Roderick_J_Associates for those of you that are on Instagram.
I'm actually putting that in the chat. Wow, at the Voice of Rod. What else was it?
Roderick_J_Associates on Insta.
Yep, and then just you.
Or Roderick Jefferson on LinkedIn.
Yep.
I ain't hard to find. If you got questions, ask away.
And honestly, if you just go on my LinkedIn, you'll find him as one of my friends anyway.
There you go.
So yeah. All right. So we'll wrap it up here, guys. Roderick, thanks, man. Appreciate you spending time with me and everybody else.
Absolute honor and pleasure to be here. I hope that I've given them something that they can use and they'll go and put into practical application. And so on that note, I always leave it this way. You can't hope that you're going to be in the right company. You can't hope that the salesperson you're working with is going to get it. You can't hope that the company is going to see your value. You can't hope that you're going to have the right service that they need. And Sean, you know where I'm going. My favorite hashtag. Why? Because hashtag hope is not a strategy.
No, it's not. Thank you all. Thank you, Roderick. We'll see you on the next time. Peace out, Girl Scouts.